Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's highlights for astrological events from June 24th until July 2nd. And we have some awesome energy this week. It's going to be very positive energy. So I have cast this chart for June 24th, 2022 at 12 noon, and it will go until noon on, we'll take it until July 2nd at noon. So the sun is now in Cancer. I have a friend who is turning 100 this month. She is the Cancer, so I want to wish her a happy birthday. And as we open up this week that's coming up, we have the moon coming up on Uranus, and so you may be in for a few emotional surprises as the day goes on. But overall, the 24th is a beautiful day, somewhat relaxed, I suppose. We have some upcoming alignments that take place on the 27th and the 28th. The one on the 27th is Mercury Sextile Chiron. And Mercury Sextile Chiron is offering us some ideas now that Mercury is past his shadow from his recent retrograde. Mercury is offering us some ideas about what we need to heal over here in Aries. Which is about our autonomy, our ability to act on our own will, and those sorts of things. And we have some good alignments for that because we have Mars in Aries. We also have Jupiter in Aries. And so they're giving a boost. They're allowing us to feel more positive about the healing process that's going on there in Aries and reaching for what we really want or taking action in the way we really want. We talked about that last week. This idea of becoming your own person. And that's good for all of us to do every once in a while, take an inventory and see what we have decided over, all of our experience and all of our life, where we have decided how we want to go forward, who we want to be when we grow up, so to speak, and when we are able to act on our own will. And so that's getting a huge boost from Mars here and Jupiter in Aries and Chiron right here in between them. But the next day, on the 28th, Neptune begins retrograde, and Neptune will be retrograde until December 3rd. All the retrograde takes place in Pisces. And on that same day, let's move the chart to the 28th. And on the next day, so this is midweek on Tuesday, the next day we have a new moon. And that new moon is going to be square Jupiter. And so there may be kind of this some creative working out that needs to take place between this need for autonomy, this need to act on our own will, and the nurturing and caring energy that the new moon brings in. But that's not really an issue, and the reason is because Venus is also playing a role in this alignment. So Venus, Jupiter, and the sun and the moon are all in this alignment, and what it's asking for is conversation. It's asking for you to diplomatically talk about what's going on with you and how this can be used to help not only you but others in understanding and supporting, being emotionally supported during this transition of whatever it is you have going on over there in Aries, whatever it is you want to do. Ask for support. Be open about what's going on, because Jupiter is sextile Venus. In Gemini, there's a good chance that an open, honest conversation will yield results. But either way, there's this chance to go forward in a new way. even though it may be difficult, we kind of need this square in order to feel free to move forward. So, the new moon square Jupiter, and sextile Jupiter is sextile Venus. This is a semi-sextile, meaning they're within 30 degrees of each other, but in different signs. One is an intellectual sign, one is an emotional sign. And so the intellect and the emotions don't always line up. But there's a chance that through this conversation, through actually considering how the changes you want to make would affect others, and how others would affect your decisions, having a good conversation about it and just finding out, putting a little filler out there and finding out how people would respond. Now, I'm not advocating that you make your decisions based on what others think or feel. And my usual mode of communication about this is it's none of your business what other people think. However, since we're talking about emotions, it may be just that you need to give someone or provide someone with information that will allow them to have an emotional change, to allow them to integrate something that is changing. And when we need to do this, when we have a conversation with someone that we know this is the way it's going to be for us, but they need to go through an emotional adjustment in order to be able to not be negative or hurt emotionally by the change that's happening for us, then having these conversations and allowing them, being very, very caring and supportive of them, you know how they feel, be supportive of them without giving up your own right to make your own choices. You can move the pendulum in the right direction, if that makes sense. So it's a positive week. It's a very positive week with Jupiter and Venus aligned. And I think that we have a good opportunity to have some of those more difficult discussions that would usually lead to an emotional outcome. But you know, people's emotional reactions, first emotional reactions, are not always how they feel or how they want to go forward. So give people an opportunity. Let them have their time to go through the emotional adjustment and to adjust to what you want to do without forcing it on them, without setting boundaries or limits that now naturally you don't want anybody to be very negative or pushy towards you. But this is kind of one of those conversations, you know, Cancer is the sign of our primary caretaker, which is usually our mother. And so the new moon is taking place in the sign of the caretaker, the mother. And it's as if you're having a conversation with your mom that says, I'm going to move to Thailand, or I want to live in a different culture. And your mom, of course, doesn't want you to go away, but she'll adjust, right? You can talk on the phone, you know, reminder of all the ways that you can communicate other than just being in her physical presence. So I'm not saying that this has to be a really difficult situation, but there's positives that can come out of it. You get to show a little bit of freedom, and there may be somebody in your life that is demonstrating this Jupiter in Aries experience, and you're the one over in Cancer having to make the adjustment, the emotional adjustment to someone else's desires. And that's okay. You give yourself time to integrate how you feel about the change that's happening too. It's always easy to be kind to someone, and sometimes that involves just withdrawing and taking time to process your own feelings about something. But overall, these are really positive alignments. The Jupiter and Venus alignment especially. And the sun, the new moon, is kind of highlighting a new beginning. And the new moon is when we start new projects, when we start a new experience for the next 30 days. And so the new moon is telling you it's time to start, or it's time to put into action at that square with Jupiter. It's time to put into action and be considerate of those around you, those you care for. So before the week is done, before we get to the 4th of July weekend, we have Mercury trine Saturn, and we'll get that up here in just a second. So Mercury trine Saturn. And that is bringing us, so we're just off the new moon, and Mercury is here at 24 Gemini, and is at a trine to Saturn here. So Mercury and Saturn. So this is kind of the opposite feeling of the Jupiter-Venus alignment. Saturn is focused on what? Restrictions, limitations, boundaries, those kinds of things. And it's in the sign of groups, social networking, and pretty much anything that has to do with humanity and humanity in groups. So, you know, if you're from Texas, you're a Texan, that kind of thing. And Mercury is over here in Gemini, in the sign of how we think, perceive, and understand. And so there's a lot of, when Mercury is in Gemini, we're really busy. We're like flittering around everywhere. Mercury is the messenger, and that's the sign he rules. Gemini is the sign he rules. So he's very active in Gemini. He loves to disperse information. He loves to communicate, especially in his local environment in Gemini. So, you know, you say hi to the neighbors, you get into talk with them, you get sidetracked, you know. There's just all this stuff going on when you're in, when Mercury is in Gemini. And Venus is here as well. So Mercury is having a little bit, now remember Saturn went retrograde on June 4th, and will be retrograde until October 23rd, all in Aquarius here. And so being retrograde, he's kind of internalized. So our limits and boundaries, our even our foundations are more internal. So we are feeling somehow inhibited, yet Mercury wants to have all of this communication. And so, you know, people are, I think, more reluctant to reach out to each other right now, even people we know, so to speak, like that are in our local environment. But you may meet a little bit of resistance, and it's not intentional, and it's not a full stop. You know, Saturn's retrograde, so it's not a full stop. You're not running into a boundary and not able to realize it. Although it may be that you don't realize you've stepped over a boundary or a line or a limitation, and you keep going because, like I said, Mercury likes to be very busy in Gemini. So notice if you meet some resistance in the community, in the group that you belong to. Notice if your ideas are, the things you're saying, your ideas are meeting resistance. And after that, you know, it's just a matter of, especially with the trine, the energy moves back and forth pretty freely. So if you address those limitations or address those boundaries and talk about them, it may make sense. Now, might not be appropriate in some situations. Mercury is also authority figures. And so, I'm sorry, not Mercury. Saturn can represent authority figures, people that tell you can't do what you want to do. And so, since we're talking about this autonomy and all of the energy in Aries up here, Saturn could be, you could be meeting some resistance because Mars was at a sextile to Saturn just recently. And so there may be still a little bit of that going on, and that's when you want to have these conversations. And now is a good time to have conversation. There may be just some reticence to having the conversation. People get uncomfortable when things change, and they don't like to be taken out of their comfort zone, and they'll resist. They'll hold back, or they'll suppress their desire even for change. But I do tend to tell clients that, you know, what's not working for you is not working for the other person. So remember that even if you meet resistance to change, if it's what the current circumstances are not working for you, they're not working for the other person involved either. So give yourself a little leeway there. Have those conversations that might be tough to have. But you could get some very, very positive results with the Venus and Jupiter energy going on right now. Mercury will also be square Neptune, which will be retrograde by then. So Mercury is square Saturn and Neptune at this time on the July 2nd. And Neptune offers a little bit of a schism. It kind of puts a veil over things. And so, you know, your Mercury is first going to meet this resistance, and then he's going to come into this energy of Neptune in Pisces, and that is a lot more, how should I say it, amenable to going with the flow. It's Pisces is a mutable sign, and Neptune itself is not, it kind of dissolves boundaries or dissolves limitations. So even though you're meeting these limitations, there's an opportunity to dissolve them away. Taken very slowly, very easily, just letting those limitations move, adjust, whatever the case may be. So that is it for the week of June 24th to Friday, July 2nd. And I appreciate you being here, Shiny Souls. I hope you will come back next week. And I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.